come to your designated weekend and have a full understanding of what to do. My intentions are to come in and help, but I may not be able to give as much time. But if you know what's going on, then you'll be better off. I do have it from Justin Hoover and Caleb Cook, and Justin's already done a show once before, that if you would like their help, they will come and help you do your show as well. So we've got a pretty good tag team effort so that you guys can have the best possible capstone exhibitions as you can, okay? So anyway, tonight's discussion is being videotaped. So once this is done, I'm going to upload this, and you can refer back to it as often as you need to. I hope it will be small enough to fit on Blackboard, but at the very least, I'm going to upload it to YouTube, where I've got several other videos, and you guys can just find it and watch it as you need to, okay? The first thing I gave you is a map of the gallery and the dimensions in inches of each wall, okay? That's important when it comes time to start doing your math. And yes, there is math in art. But we're going to use Meg McGee's show to talk about how to do this. I think it's a pretty good way because her stuff's fairly common in terms of theme, but also it has enough diversity to show you how to get things kind of balanced out if you all have multiple types of work, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to hang your shows on a Sunday, and you're going to open on a Monday, and Laquita has you running all the way through to Friday, and then you're going to take down on Saturday, whenever it's your week, okay? So the way it's worked in the past is Sunday afternoon around 2 o'clock, I would be up here, okay? And I would meet with the student, and we'd get their show laid out, talk about how to hang a show, and if that student had no one to help them, then I would stay and help them get their show put together, and then I would light. I'm in charge of lighting. You do not touch the track lights. They will break. They're very fragile, so I do all lighting, okay? But on Saturday, you're responsible for getting your work out of here, patching all of the holes in the walls, and then sanding the patch smooth. You do not paint. You just patch and sand. And I give you all the tools you need, okay? So on Sunday afternoon, I'll bring you everything down here, the drill, the tape measure, the screws, whatever. And on Friday, I'll leave for you the drywall mud, the putty knife, the drill, all that you need to get out of here, okay? And you need to make sure that you are out of here so the next person can come in on Sunday and hang their show. So you're gonna have to really be on your game because there's so many of you, you don't wanna, cost someone their Sunday afternoon because you didn't do what you're supposed to do on Saturday. So stay on top of your show, okay? All right. So, looking at this map, when the show gets laid out and you have all of the work where you want it, then you start doing all the measurements and the subtractions and the divisions and all that kind of stuff to get it spaced. And once it's spaced, you then figure out how high up on the wall it needs to be for display purposes, and there's a formula for that. So we're going to kind of be working in 3 phases tonight to get you guys to understand how to do a show. So phase 1 is layout. So let's say, as you look around this room, this is what's in and brought to the gallery. What do you notice about the works on any given wall?
They're on the same level.
Huh?
They're on the same level.
They're all the same level. Gallery height is 60 inches from center. And we'll get to that formula in step 3. But yes, everything has a nice, even, professionally designated height. So you can cut a center line at 60 inches and it'll hit right through the middle of all those pieces. That's true. But in terms of laying out the show, if all these paintings were just dumped in here, how did I arrange this for Meg McGee?
They're grouped by type, either by subject or what the frames are, or what their subject is.
We're talking about commonalities. Commonalities. For example, let's talk about this main wall. What are some of the things that are in common with all these pieces on this wall?
They are all landscape studies.
They're all landscapes.
They're all in similar style and the same medium.
They're all paintings.
They're all the same frame,
They're the same frame,
same size.
and they're all the same size. Makes it pretty easy, doesn't it? They got 4 things in common. No other piece has the same frame, the same size. Okay? So it was pretty simple when the show came in, and knowing how many pieces there were and how big they were, it made sense. These pieces should be on the biggest wall of the gallery, right? So one thing you need to consider when you bring your work down here on Sunday is grouping it by all the commonalities that you can find. Are they all paintings? Or are they all prints? Or are they all drawings? Or are they all photographs? Keep similar media together. Don't split it up. You don't want to have a painting next to a photograph if over here you have all photographs. It doesn't make sense to stick a photo anywhere else, does it? Keep things that are common together. Right? Keep similar sizes together. You don't want to put an 8-foot square giant painting right next to a little 6-inch square painting. The 6-inch guy is going to get dwarfed, isn't it? You want to keep similar sizes together so one piece doesn't take away from the next. You want everything to have an equal weight to it, right? So keep that in mind when you're laying your show out. For example, this wall here is a little bit different. It doesn't have the same size, doesn't have the same frame, and doesn't have the same subject matter, does it? So what led me to choose this orientation? Well, if you look around the rest of the room, you'll notice that, of course, these 2 little guys are the only 2 that small. So I had to keep those guys together, right? To split them up, they would have died visually. They would have got lost. So we had to keep them together, all right? Big bold frames, copper, big brown wood frames, those would have all overshadowed the little guys. Those are big, grand kind of display type, just like these gold guys over here. The paintings on the back wall are, medium size, but they're also of a different kind of palette. Those are more subdued colors. Look at how rich and bold those paintings are. So when we made the decision that these 2 guys had to stay together, the next thing was this guy in the middle. He doesn't fit anything else, does he? If you look around the gallery, the subject matter, the style, the palette, that guy would be an oddball with those other 5 back there, because it's a raw canvas. There's no frame. There's no frame on those. But he doesn't belong with that group. However, look at how bold that is. Look how bold that is, right? He complements this guy. And so since he works with this guy, and this guy works in scale to that guy, that was the resolution for that wall, right? Now, the other thing to consider is this. What's going to be your postcard image? This was Megan's postcard image. You want your audience, when they come to your show, you want them to see your postcard image as soon as possible, because that's what tells them I'm in the right place. This is the show. And this wall or this wall should contain your postcard image if possible. All right? Well, since this wall is obviously completely full with the gold framed, same size landscapes, then it makes sense for this wall to receive this painting and these 2 guys. Does that all make sense to you? So that's how we got this wall. That's how we got that wall. Now the one behind you, the next issue that we dealt with was we had all 5 of these paintings that had one thing in common. No frames. They're gallery wrapped. That means the painting goes around the edges to the outside of the canvas. Okay? So, because of that, those paintings needed to all stay together. We didn't want to split those up with the remaining paintings that you see over here. Again, what's common? This is all about presentation back there. No frames. Okay? So, the assessment was, would those pieces fit better on that wall, which is the second shortest wall, or would they fit better over this way? This is the second longest wall. And as you can see, because these pieces have frames on them, they need a little bit more room to breathe. So the decision was made to put them back there. Then all of your oddball stuff goes on this wall, because this is the last wall people see. It's not visible from the lobby. I always say this wall is kind of the leftovers. Okay? Once you've got everything organized and laid out, you've got your postcard image either here or here, and you've got your best stuff kind of already started, this wall's kind of what you've got left over. Now, I'm not saying it should be junk, okay? Everything in your show should be good stuff, okay? But it's a hodgepodge. We got 2 copper frames, we got 2 brown wood frames, we got 1 black wood frame. They're all different, okay? But that's okay. It works because we grouped them in somewhat of a combined fashion. We kept the 2 copper paintings closer together. The 2 brown ones, because of their separate sizes, we gave them the center section of the wall. Then the odd little black frame guy got the end down there. Okay? So, hopefully you can see that there's some rhyme and reason to laying out a show. It's not just haphazard. You have to think about several things and what makes good sense. Okay? Now, let's talk about flow from one wall to another. All right? What do you notice about this painting and that painting? What strikes you?
They're basically like the same color scheme for the most part, like green on the bottom, blue on top.
Exactly.
Same horizontal or the horizon line.
So, even though scale is drastically different and presentation's drastically different, this wall flows into this one for the very reason of a common theme and common palette. You see that? Green, blue, green, blue. So what happens when we get to this corner and we go to that painting? What do you notice? Same thing. Purples, pastels, pinks, yellows, purples. So presentation's different, scale's different, colors are the same. So this corner goes to that corner. How about these two over here?
Skies and clouds.
Theme, subject matter, and size. Similar size, sky with clouds, right? One painting complements the other one. It allows you to go from one wall to the other, right? So you want to think about that as well. How does your walls flow? Your show, not that it has to do this, but it works really well if you can get that connection. Instead of each wall feeling like it's an isolated thing, if you can find something in common, it lets your whole show come together as one big visual experience, okay? So you want to think about that when you're laying things out, all right? So those are the guidelines for getting things laid out against the wall. That's how you're going to start. You're just going to get everything all leaned up against these walls and just start matching things up, shuffling things around, and figuring out what works best based on all the commonalities, all the shared qualities, and you get it together, okay? Now, spacing. Okay, and this is where this chart is important. I suggest you guys get something to write with and make notes on the back. There's a lot to remember. You should be writing this stuff down. If you notice, every single piece is equally spaced. You can take a tape measure and measure the negative space between each work. And it's nice and equal. Unless it's meant to be a grouping like these two, or it's meant to be a diptych like those two. All right? Those were deliberately chosen to be closer because they're a diptych, all right? So, how do you do the math to figure out your spacing? So, as you're getting stuff on the wall, you want it to start being even. When your work's finally laid out the way you want it, you take the tape measure, you measure the width of every single piece on that wall and total it up. You measure the width and total all the pieces for that wall. You take that total and you subtract it from the full measurement that's on your chart, on your map. You subtract your width total from the full length of that wall. You take the difference, and you divide it by the number of negative spaces you have. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative spaces. So you would divide your difference by the number of negative spaces that's on the wall. The answer to that is how many inches should be in between each piece. Now to make it simple, I would average your answer to the nearest 1/4 inch. Don't try to mess with 1/8 or 1/16 or 1/32 of an inch. That's crazy. Just round to the nearest 1/4 inch. And if you're using a calculator, you know 1/4 inches are based on 0.25. So wherever your math falls, if you're closer to 0.25, that's a 1/4 inch. If it's 0.5, that's 1/2 inch. If it's 0.75, that's 3/4, or you round to 0, and that's just an even inch. Got it? And then you take the tape measure, it just, if your piece is here on the floor, okay? If your show's laid out, and you got your piece down here, then all you do is take the tape measure, pull it out to the distance that you need, lock it, and just stick the end of the tape measure against the corner, and you set your left side edge of your piece to the measurement that you're supposed to have. And once that's in place, you take the tape measure and you set it against this edge of the painting and set the next piece to that distance. And go down the wall and then go all the way around the gallery until everything is equally spaced on the floor. Okay? And you should be able to visually see, once you've done that, you can look around the room and to the naked eye, everything should be equal. Okay, now, as a side note, because we're rounding to the nearest 1/4 inch, it's possible that when you get to the very end, you may be like an inch longer than all the other spaces, but that's okay. To the naked eye, you can't tell. Okay? So whatever you end up with at the end, that's okay. Just let that be, because you can't tell. Everybody follow that? Okay. So, what do we do next? Once you've got your show completely spaced, you take your tape measure and you go back to each piece. You find the center of the horizontal. You find the center. And you put a very soft dash with a pencil on the wall where the center of the piece is. Can you all see that little dash right there? Can you all see that? That marks where the center of this piece is. Okay? You go all the way around the gallery and you mark the center of each piece on the wall in pencil. Once it's marked, you can safely move the piece out of the way, and now you can take the tape measure and go up the wall to find where your screw's supposed to go. Okay? Now here's the formula for that. Write this down. To find the center, the 60-inch center on a piece, you take half the height of the piece, 1/2 H, half of H, you add that to 60. So 1/2 H plus 60 minus the distance between the top of the piece and the hanging hardware. So you can call that, X, as long as you know what X means. So 1/2 H plus 60 minus X. And that tells you where the screw goes in the wall. So let me demonstrate that. These are 16 by 20 paintings and frames. So let's just say, for the sake of math, this is 20 inches high. I take 10, add it to 60, I get 70. Then I take the tape measure, I hook the lip of the tape measure and pull this, because this is where the hanging hardware is, and I measure from here to here. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, this is about 6 inches. I subtract 6 from 70. And that gives me 64, right? So once I know that, I come back over here to my hash mark, and I take the tape measure, I run it down to the floor, I pin it up against this hash mark, and I raise it up to 64, and put a little dot on the wall at 64. Boom, that's where the screw goes. So when this guy hangs from that wire, the center of it is at 60 inches. Does that make sense? Half the height plus 60 minus the hanging hardware from the top of the piece. And again, round to the nearest quarter inch. If you're measuring that distance and somehow your wire is at 5 and 17/32, don't do that. Round it, okay? Because to the naked eye cannot differentiate an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch. Keep it simple. Keep your math simple and just round to the nearest quarter inch, and you'll be in good shape, okay? Once the screw's in, you just hang your piece, right? Do yourself a favor. Invest in hanging wire. It makes it a lot easier to do this, okay? However, I'll show you a couple of examples. If you don't put wire on your paintings, you can hang from the stretcher bar. I think this one is hanging from the stretcher bar. All right, just right off the wooden lip right there. Okay, that's okay. If you don't have wire for your paintings, that's okay. All right. However, as I've told you all before on your paperwork that I gave you at the beginning of the semester, works on paper should be framed. Make sure the frames that you buy either allow for a wire to be attached, or they have some type of hardware on the back like a bulldog, or some type of pre-drilled hole that will let you hang that frame from a screw. Some frames that you buy don't have anything on the back of them. Okay, you just got to keep in mind the kind of frames that you're buying and make sure they come with hardware, or you got to buy the hardware and attach it to the back. And that's your responsibility to do that. I'm happy to show you how, but it's yours to get it done. So don't bring work to the gallery that doesn't have a way to get hung. That's pointless. Your work needs to be ready to go on the wall when you show up on Sunday afternoon so you can get everything done. Now the other example I will show you, be right back, is out here in the hallway. If your paintings are on masonite, you have two options. The easiest option, I think, is to glue two wooden cleats to the back of your panel, one at the top, one at the bottom, and just measure some distance down from the top. I believe this is about 12 inches from the top. Roughly a quarter of the way down from the top is about right. Glue a cleat, this is a 1x2, okay? Just glue it overnight, attach one to the bottom. Now the easiest thing to do is once this cleat's dry, you attach picture hanging wire to this. Just put two mirror hangers or D-rings on both sides and just loop a picture hanging wire from one to the other. That way you hang it right from that wire. But the other way to do it is, once you know the height, your distance here, you take a third cleat. You take a third cleat and you screw that cleat into the wall, make sure it's level, and then this cleat rests on top of the cleat in the wall, and it free hangs like 2 stacked blocks. You understand that? If you want a better understanding, you can go out to the hallway here and see how this panel is hanging from a cleat in the hallway. Okay? The math is the same. You measure the distance from here to here, and that's where your third cleat gets mounted, if that's what you want to do. Okay? So that's an option if you're going to hang an unframed panel painting. Now, personally, I think when panel paintings are framed, they look nice. They look nicer. Because oftentimes, if you notice, the edges of your masonite can get splayed. They get a little rough. They don't look very clean. Okay, it's not, by no means is this professional. I mean, this wouldn't fly in a gallery, okay? But we let it slide because of it's your capstone school show. But preferably, this should be in a frame, okay? And again, I'd be happy to show you and help you make a frame for your panel paintings if you're showing them. But again, you have to see me early enough so I have time to teach you how to do that, okay? So, this is another way to do it, yeah.
What if the edges of like a masonite panel painting are not square? Like I have one that's cut out.
What we want to do is probably get the Festool circular saw and the jig and set that jig as close as we can to the edge and get a nice crisp line and just shave off the part that's
No,
crooked.
it's deliberately.
Oh, it's deliberately edge?
Yeah,
Oh, like,
it's the rose vines. Or the
oh,
rose
okay, so
bushes.
it's not a
No.
miscut.
No, it's.
Yeah, okay. No. Okay. No, you still have room to put a cleat on the back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just hang it from the cleat and let the edges, they're meant to be loose. Like Caleb's silhouettes.
Yeah.
I mean, unless he put those in a shadow box, they're meant to hang with the organic edge.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
And like I said, you guys can do this for your show, if this is what it comes down to. It's not the best. I mean, you can kind of see where the edges are already kind of crumpled, but this works. So,
Would that work for our type of paintings in a gallery though? If they're meant to hang that way, like, would there be another way to do it?
no, I mean, if your work is meant to have organic edges, then it's meant to have organic edges.
Okay.
I mean, the gallery is responsible for displaying your work the way you insist it be displayed. No, that's totally fine.
Okay.
I'm just thinking more